In the previous tutorial, we have been focusing on Super Time Force's art direction and writing our characters. In this video, we are going to talk about the drawing process. We are going to first talk about the design of the characters I've made, and then talk about some specific painting and pixel art techniques with Krita. Here is how I proceeded to make the characters. First, I drew Selma directly in pixel art. I made two versions, one with a punk style and one with a more ninja style. I am not necessarily comfortable when I start with pixel art. In order to do it well, you need to have quite a bit of experience. For me, it is easier to start by painting a few mid-sized concepts. It is easier to define the style, the facial expression, and the proportions of the characters that way. You can do it on paper with a pencil, or just like I did on Krita with colors. I chose that approach for the characters of Bobby and Sergeant Jenkins. Just like you write and define characters in relationship to one another, I always try to replicate that contrast in the design of the characters. Their respective personalities are very different, and this has to be visible. The first version of Selma is a bit masculine. She has a banana-style haircut, shaved hair on the sides of her face, and a prominent piercing. As far as colors are concerned, I initially chose a combination of green and blue and finally fell back on red hair and clothes. It feels closer to the young woman's explosive personality. Bobby, her companion, has a large torso, shorter legs, and uses two complementary colors, green and purple. These contrast well with the blue and the red of Selma's final sprite. Both characters also have the same skin color, the same eyes, and the same mouth. This allows me to set them apart from their enemy, Jenkins. This character is a white-skinned android inspired by drag queens. His eyes are blue, his mouth pink, and the color of his hair and his robe are less vibrant than the hero's palettes. Jenkins is also way taller than them. Let us now talk about the technical side of the process. We are going to start with the character's concept art and painting. As far as concept art is concerned, we generally work with few layers and very simple tools. There is no need to use special blending modes or advanced tools for this cel-shaded visual style. I mostly use the tools shown in my Introduction to Krita tutorials. I approach these paintings the same way I work with pixel art. I jump straight away into colors and try to define the character's silhouette. I try to define the volume and the proportions directly, and I don't draw outlines. Starting with outlines or with thick paint is just a matter of training. Most of the time, the drawing method that feels the most comfortable for us is simply the one we use all the time. For a long time, I always started my sprites with outlines. It is only when I became a professional that I took the time to explore another method. I recommend that you alternate between outlines and thick paint. They are complementary. If you start with well-defined outlines, it will be easy to fill it and get an opaque silhouette. This is essential when you draw sprites for a game. If you work directly with thick paint, you will be able to define and play with your silhouettes fast. However, when you do that, you often tend to leave small gaps that are not necessarily visible when working on a still-colored background. Those little transparent gaps are visible in-game, however. That is why you'll mostly see concept artists or illustrators working directly with thick paint. As we are still on concept art, Krita has a pretty unique function that's very handy. Pseudo-infinite canvas. You don't need to create a very large document from the get-go. You just have to pan away from the document in the direction in which you want to expand it. An arrow will then appear. When you click on it, the size of the document will double in the direction of the arrow. Let us now bounce back to pixel art. The overall process is the same as with concept art, and that's why I wanted to talk about both in the same tutorial. As far as pixel art is concerned, it is interesting to start by defining broad proportions and the character's silhouettes in color. We are always going to work with 100% opaque pixels with a big zoom level. Because of that, we don't end up missing gaps in the sprite. It is faster to work like that than to start with a simple outline because you get to see the shape of your character right away. If you recall what we saw in the previous video, we are going to work on characters that are between 2 and 4 heads high, nothing more. Thus, the proportions between the characters' heads and their bodies are not realistic. In Super Time Force, the characters use pretty vivid colors. And we also have seen that for every color swatch, you get two variations, a light tone and a shadow tone. The shadow tone is used to give depth to the character's body, to put the leg and the arm that are farthest away from the camera behind. It helps the rest of the sprite to pop. The art style of Super Time Force uses large zones with single colors. It's the same mindset as with cel shading. The characters are pretty flat, but very easy to read as their shading is not too detailed. We are going to wrap up the video with a cool Krita technique. The similar color selection tool is very handy for pixel art. If you want to change one of your character's colors, you just have to activate this tool to set the fuzziness value to the minimum and click on a color. Krita will then select all of the pixels similar to the one you selected. You can then fill the selection with your foreground color using the Shift plus Delete key combination. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. I hope that you learned something. If you want to go further, if you want to become a better game artist, be sure to check out GDquest. It is a premium training series in which I will deliver you all of the techniques I use in my professional work. It is currently on Kickstarter, so if you want it to happen, if you want GDquest to continue on, be sure to check it out today. That said, I want to thank you kindly for watching. Be creative, have fun, until next time.